This week, we go to the big questions. And this is lesson 4, where we go. And the idea here is that many people wonder, where do we go? Do we go to, for centuries, human beings have been motivated by the promise of heaven, frightened by the threat of hell. Discover what Jews believe about where every soul goes and how Kaddish helps a soul in reaching true peace. We'll open up with a parable. By the way, this is where Rabbi was last week. Look on the screens. This is the conference. That's Rochi's family, by the way. All those are Rochi's first cousins, who are all shluchas around the world. This was, they had the roll call. All those women are from different continents, and they did the, I don't know, was that choir maybe? They did it. They had a kids conference as well at the same time. So the people who were here last week, the women wanted to go together next year with Rachi on this delegation, and we could take a table from Hampstead Garden Suburb, and you can all join Rachi in that. And I'll tell you, it's a very, very empowering thing. It's the biggest gathering of Jewish leaders from around the world, women leaders. You've got 5,000 Jewish women in leadership, a lot of energy in that room, and a lot of inspiring stories. If you want later, I can send you some of the videos. But we will start today's class with a parable.
Birth and death are as contradictory as night and light. But they are strangely associated with an identical Hebrew word, kever. Kever means a tomb where a body is buried. But kever also means a womb where life is formed. A womb is a gateway to life, while a tomb is a gateway to afterlife. But is there an afterlife? Or does laying a body to rest in a grave mark the absolute end? If it were within our power to interview a soul, we would undoubtedly glean insight into afterlife. Instead, we have chosen to eavesdrop on a set of twins in their mother's womb to shed some light on the before life.
Hey, twin, I'm scared of birth.
Why?
It's the end of existence. We get ejected. We're finished.
I'm also anxious, twin, but I'm not scared. Birth is supposed to be a transition to the real life.
Huh. Don't give me the hiccups with your after-birth real-life fantasies. How can life be supported without an umbilical cord and amniotic fluid?
Well, maybe it's a radically different form of life. Maybe we won't need the cord.
I wish you were right. I keep kicking that thing away from my neck.
Stop spinning for a minute and imagine, twin. After birth, we will enter a ginormous universe filled with light and with air that we will breathe through our mouths.
Come on, grow some brain cells, will you? Mouths are not for breathing. Besides, if your postnatal paradise existed, why has no one ever returned from that realm? Forget it. Once we leave here, we collapse into cold, dry nothingness and wither into eternal gloom.
I don't think Mother would allow that to happen. She nurtures us in this cozy womb. She sends us nutrients for months on end. For what purpose? Just to end it all with birth? No. Mother has greater plans for us than that.
Now you're beginning to sound infantile. Do you see a mother lurking in some corner of the womb? Not a trace. Show me a mother. And as for your nutrients, can't you feel that annoying cord? Don't exchange empirical for fantastical.
Thankfully, these two delightful infants made it safely to the other side. They grew up in the universe that one had described and the other had denied. And until today, they continue their clamorous debate. It is only that the topic of contention has slightly shifted from is there life after the womb to is there life after the tomb?
Okay, that's the end of the class. Just kidding. So the central message is that there's something beyond this world, right? And it's not just that once we die, it's over, but we're actually born twice, once from the womb and once from the tomb. So we're going to talk about today, so what is the after? We're going to split it into two classes, actually. Today we're going to talk about heaven and hell. Next week is about reincarnation. Obviously we don't know where we've been. We don't always come back, as they say, but we can glean from Jewish sources of what we're talking about, what the whole approach to it is. But if let's see on page 128. I'm just going to 129. You could say what I think I know about Jewish view of afterlife, or what I would like to know. Okay, exercise 4.2. Or you could just tell me what word or idea immediately enters your mind when you hear the word hell. Bad, suffering, darkness, fire, scary, evil. Huh? Bad, condemnation. Wow. You don't know? Fire. Punishment. Interesting. Oh, very good. It actually is interesting. Anyone else? What do you want to? Okay. Okay. So now, oh, very good. So people ask us, do Jews believe in hell or heaven? One of the things that why we're here today with a lot of these classes is by virtue, and I've said this before, by virtue of the fact that we live in an English-speaking country. English, the language, was designed for theologically to describe Christian concepts. So we in Judaism use a lot of words in English to describe Jewish concepts, but really the etymology of those words are Christian concepts. The three biggest, boldest letters in the Machzor are prayer, repentance, and charity. Those three don't exist in Judaism. We have teshuvah, we have tefillah, we have tzedakah, which are very different, but the only translations we have are prayer, repentance, and charity. Prayer means to beg a mighty God to give you something. Tefillah, which is the Hebrew word, means to bond with God. Repentance means to fix a broken person. You've done something wrong, you're bad, and you've got to repent. Teshuvah means return to your true self. You're perfect, you're divine, you've just been kicked over, you've been grown distant from yourself. Go back to your pure self. Charity means I don't have to do it, but out of the goodness of my heart, I'm giving charity. Tzedakah means, the etymology of the word is righteousness and justice. This is how the world is supposed to work. I must give charity because God gave me extra money so that I should be part of his partner in distributing that money. So that's prayer, repentance, and charity. The same thing is when it comes to heaven and hell. These are Christian concepts, but in Judaism, we do have a concept of good things happening to us, afterlife, and uncomfortable things happening to us, afterlife. Reward and punishment. But before we get to that moment, on exercise 4.3, just take a moment to tick off. Does everyone have pens, by the way? There are a whole thing of pens here. New pens? Right. Okay. Just tick off on exercise 4.3, mark from a 1 is least pleasurable, 10 is most pleasurable. From 1 to 10, what gives you most pleasure? So, happiness, Hawaiian cruise, lifetime membership to country club, social status, wealth, wisdom, etc. You done? Okay. Now, let's look at text number 1a. How comfortable are you with, when you hear the words reward and punishment in Judaism, how comfortable are you with the concept of God rewarding you or punishing you? Raise your hand if you're comfortable with that concept. Reward and punishment. With a concept, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're uncomfortable. You're comfortable with it. You're comfortable with reward and punishment. Uncomfortable. Raise your hand if you're uncomfortable. Good. Almost. Uncomfortable reward and punishment. Now, this is a concept that needs a lot of clarification. Because Maimonides codified 13 principles of faith. What does that mean, principles of faith? These ideas that if you want to believe in the logical structure of Jewish faith, you need these 13 principles without which the structure, the building of Jewish faith falls down. For example, you have to believe in God. If you don't believe there is a God, the whole structure falls down. You have to believe that God gave us the Torah. If you don't, the whole structure falls down. Why should I? If it doesn't come from God, etc. Now, I'll give you something that's not in there. What's not in there is that God created the world in 6 days, even though the Torah says it, and we believe it, but it's not a principle, meaning that the logical structure of the faith doesn't fall away if you don't believe that point. Now, point number 11 is he puts that as reward and punishment. Look at text 1a. The 11th of the 13 principles of Jewish faith is that God, blessed be He, rewards those who observe the commandments of the Torah. Page 132. Page 132. The 11th of the 13 principles of Jewish faith is that God, blessed be He, rewards those who observe the commandments of the Torah and punishes those who transgress the prohibitions. Not only that, he says the greatest of the rewards is, and the strongest punishment is to be cut off from the world to come. Why? And he's saying, what does that mean? He's saying the greatest punishments are spiritual punishments, the greatest rewards are spiritual rewards. Why is it so? You just have to look back at what you just ticked off on the other page, and you'll probably notice that what ranked highest on page 130, what you wrote, I would imagine the more spiritual things like wisdom, happiness, meaning, ranked higher than a Hawaiian cruise, lifetime membership to exclusive country club, social status, etc. Am I right? Okay, hope so. What? Yes. Now, so that's why spiritual reward and spiritual punishment is much stronger than physical reward and physical punishment. But the concept of reward and punishment is for almost everyone in this room not too comfortable. Why? Okay, what you have people who are wicked and they have good, and you have people who are righteous and it's bad in this world. I'm talking about the concept itself, not about why God does bad things to good people, which is that.
That's why that sounds like that's what it's saying. You know, why does it?
Okay, so I actually want to discuss that, but for the flow of the class, I'm going to do this right after the class for those of you who want. I'm talking about the fact, the question that I had before was not about how God meets out reward and punishment, which I also, little me, I don't agree with most of the things he does, unfortunately. I think That's part of our job, by the way, is not to agree. But the fact that reward and punishment exists as the fabric of our belief. Wait a minute. Why do you have to reward me or punish me? If I'm doing it for the right reasons, if it's valuable and if it's something worthwhile, I should do it. And that's it. You're going to reward me and bribe me to do this? That means I don't want to do it. I don't care about doing it. I don't care about God. I don't care about what He's asked me to do. I just want the rewards. Or it means I'm not doing it because of God. I'm not doing it because of the action itself. It's because there's this mighty guy in the sky who's scary like hell, literally, and he's going to punish me with hell if I don't do what he wants, so I have no choice. The whole idea of reward and punishment sits wrong. I mean, am I that immature that you have to threaten me or bribe me? Number one. Number two, is the action itself of so little value that I'm only doing it because I have no choice? Number three, if I'm doing it for the reward, then what's the point in doing it? I'm just being selfish. In fact, the Maharal of Prague explains that if you do religious things for reward or to avoid punishment, it's both immature, according to Maimonides, and selfish, according to the Maharal. Because you're only doing it for yourself. It's all about you. It's all about you avoiding punishment. It's all about you gathering reward. To quote one of my teachers, who said, who's more selfish? The hedonist who wants just to have 70 years of pleasure in this world, eat, drink, and be merry, and all they care about is pleasure in this world, for tomorrow we may die. Or the religious person who says, I'm going to hold back from all the pleasures in this world because I want pleasure forever. Who's more greedy? Who's more selfish? One wants 70 years of pleasure and one wants pleasure forever. So, no, but they're both selfish, but who's more selfish? The one who wants 70 years of pleasure, the one who wants pleasure for a million years.
I don't know if the one who wants pleasure for the future, where we're supposed to be going, because he doesn't really know where we're going.
Well, if he's saying it because I'm going to hold this back because after I die, I'm going to get 72 pies of pizza. Do you know what I mean? It's a little bit more, it's about him.
Can you have both?
What? Reward and punishment? Of course. Well, that's what everyone wants, but 1 second. Is it all about us? Are we living here just for the enjoyment that we get? Am I? When don't you have enjoyment? Exactly. So then exactly. I didn't ask to be born. Don't put me in this life. God, I didn't ask for this life. Yes. And if it's all about me, God, you're giving this is good life, really? I'm not enjoying most of this. And then you're going to tell me that I've got failings and I'm weak, and you're going to punish me for it. Really? Who asked you to create me? Don't create me. I don't need your life. I don't need your whole rewards. I don't need your whole punishments. It's not that comfortable down here. And you've given me all these weaknesses that you're only going to punish me later. I didn't ask for this. Thank you very much. I didn't ask to be created. Yeah. Is what the hell? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's unpack it. Okay. By the way, a quick, Laura. Yes. Yeah.
I think we can get. I understand the rules and something a little bit more about that. So if we're the common act of the reward for us is that nice feeling you get, you feel good. Like the byproduct of the kind of thing. So that's a reward, but we didn't.
Right. So Oh, so the point is, are you doing it to get a reward, or are you doing it for the value of itself? Why would you do it? Because it feels good?
No, so I think if you do an act of kindness,
Yeah,
because you know you're going to feel good, you're not going to feel good. If you genuinely form an act of kindness to help someone over the
right,
you get a good feeling. Like, I don't think you do it to
right, exactly. Yes,
Is it connected to that sugar and the whole concept of helping strong rise? Is that you're by observing the morning rituals, you're actually having that spirit.
yes,
But what you're doing is actually doing it from your body for that spirit.
yeah. So.
I haven't quite made the connection, but
Well, we'll see. There will be a connection with this in a moment, but we're talking about the concept itself, reward and punishment. By the way, you asked me if this world is hell. Unrelated to that, not necessarily, but it depends. It depends how you want it. Because if you view everyone, listen to this. If you view everyone around you as devils with pitchforks, some people look at everybody. They're always complaining about everyone. This person, that. Righteous indignation is like the new church today. The church of righteous indignation. Many Jews, or self-righteous indignation, many Jews subscribe to this new religion. And they view everybody, there's this anger out there. Everyone's a devil with a pitchfork. If you view everyone as a devil with a pitchfork, you know where you are? In hell. If you view everybody as a divine being, and you view yourself as a divine being, and if you view everyone else as a divine being, albeit with challenges, then where are you? In heaven. So this world, surrounded by the same people, can either be heaven or hell, depending if you view the people around you and view the world around you as beautiful beings, images of God, here on a purposeful mission with challenges like yourself, or you view them as devils with pitchforks. Your perspective will define whether you're living in hell or whether you're living in heaven. But back to the consequence of the idea that we're talking about of reward and punishment, this is very important. You cannot have a relationship with somebody who's scaring the hell out of you. If you're scared of somebody, you cannot have a relationship with someone who you're scared of, who's coercing you into doing things, or someone on whom you're dependent on and you need them, and therefore you'll do whatever they want because you need them for your survival. You cannot have a relationship with that kind of person. That's a kidnapper. That's a bully. That's just terrible. And the reward and punishment that sometimes we hear about paints God into that picture, rendering it absolutely humanly impossible to have a meaningful, fruitful, productive relationship with God. And this is where the idea of reward and punishment has to be clarified. There's two kinds of reward. Reward number one is you work, you get paid, and you buy food. The food is not intrinsic to the work. He's sewing a garment, he's a tailor, someone pays him money, he could then take that money and buy food. Then there's consequences. You sow, you reap, you eat. You don't sow, you don't reap, there's no food. The idea of reward and punishment is text number 2. Do not consider, page 134. Do not consider the punishments described in Torah as compared to penalties a person incurs for disobeying the decree of a mortal king. So a regular king, you just don't do what he does, puts you in prison, takes away your house or whatever else it may be. No. Rather, they are completely natural consequences. One who fails to observe a Torah commandment is denied the good that results from its observance. It's comparable to one who sows his field and therefore cannot reap a harvest, or one who fails to wear clothes and is then cold. It's a natural consequence of the warmth provided by fire, the wetness provided by water, the satiation of the bread. If you don't eat, you're going to be hungry. It's not punishment for not eating. And being full is not a reward for eating, it's just a consequence. In the same way, the nature of each mitzvah is to provide positive consequences that promise for its observance or the negative consequences stated regarding their transgression. So it's not payment It's not, it's a consequence. That's like saying the reward and punishment is like the doctor will say that he'll reward you with a healthy lifestyle if you eat healthy. No, the doctor is not rewarding you with healthy lifestyle if you eat healthy. The doctor is telling you that if you eat healthy, you'll have a good lifestyle. You'll be well. The reward, the same way is, or text number 3 from the Ethics of the Fathers: Schar mitzvah mitzvah, schar avera avera. The result, the reward for a mitzvah is a mitzvah. The reward for an avera is an avera. Now, the classic way of, that's text number 3. The classic way of understanding text number 3, page 135, is that if you do a mitzvah, you get rewarded with the opportunity to do another mitzvah. You do an avera, a sin, you get the opportunity, and you go into a spiral of sinning more. But this is more than that. On a deeper level, saying the reward itself is the reality that you create by doing this action. So, someone who's a thief, for example, someone who robs someone, he's punished by the court. Okay, that's an extrinsic punishment. If you rob someone, you don't automatically end up in jail. A judge has to send you there. But the real punishment for robbing someone is you lose your dignity as a human being, as self-respect. And that's consequential. The punishment for someone having a disrespectful spouse and has a bad kind of home life, that's not a punishment in the terms of extrinsic punishment. That's a reality that you've created. The same is true with the punishments and rewards that we create and the consequences of our actions in this world. I'll give you an example. So what happens is we create realities in ourselves. We create realities within ourselves with every action that we do, forges, it shapes our personality. Somebody who's just not a nice person, every action that you do makes you into a more difficult person to be around. There's someone I know told her children that they have a rule: 3 jokes a day. Maximum 3 jokes a day. If you've met 3 jerks in one day, you are the jerk. This is what she tells her kids. Why? Because if every time you walk in the room, you're setting vibrations. So you meet 1 jerk, okay, that person's a jerk. Meet 2 jerks, okay, it happens. You can meet 2 jerks in a day. If 3 people in one day are jerks, you're probably emitting certain things. You're the jerk. Everyone you meet is a jerk. You're the jerk. Because you're acting like a jerk. You walk into a room, everyone starts acting like jerks. That's because you're a jerk, and you've walked into a room and you're acting like a jerk. So it keeps on happening. There's something going on here. So you create this reality. And to fix that reality, sometimes someone's going to sit down with you and tell you, a good friend tells you, listen, I love you a lot, but you're a jerk.
Is it about being a jerk and behaving like one, or is it your mindset on that particular day? Because I might have a particular day where I'm feeling upbeat and positive, and everyone I meet I think is fantastic and nice people in the world, but regardless of my actual behaviour, it's just how my mindset is. Or I might go out for the day and have
yeah, okay, so if you see something, so you might be having a bad day.
Feeling like everyone else is a jerk, even though you're not actually.
That's just a proof of what I'm saying. You're setting a... But
it's not necessarily your behaviour or your image.
Yeah. Okay, you've got a lens on. Yeah, but okay, but what about in lifetime? Okay, if you keep running into problems with relationships with everybody, and you view everyone as devils with pitchforks, there's a problem. You're creating. So what happens is someone's got to sit down with you, a good friend who really cares, and have a very uncomfortable conversation. It's a painful conversation, but that painful conversation cleanses you. Like, for example,
do you think someone is screaming at her?
Yeah.
Your mindset seems not as a jerk.
I'm not saying.
They really
Well, yeah, you can look deep down, but it takes a great person to do that. Okay, because when you really deal with jerks, I mean, we all walk into life, but if you want, yeah, but yes, you can. We train ourselves to look into it, but let's look at it from the jerk's perspective for a minute. Okay, so a good friend sits down with the jerk and holds up a mirror in front of them. Holds up a mirror in front of them. Ah, so I just want to explain this concept. The good friend goes through this very uncomfortable conversation with the jerk and starts explaining to them, "You're a jerk." It's not only that I can say it, for sure. What? Yes. Nasty person. I'm going to work on my vocabulary. What was that? Yeah, but fuck is not really a word for a year for a synagogue. Okay, there's a reason why there are not that many descriptive words that are not X-rated. Now, so you're sitting with this person who's got difficulties in their. Imagine a kid. Someone, excuse me if you've heard it in other contexts. Kids running around without socks and shoes. You say, "Hey, put your shoes on. You're gonna get a splinter." He says, "I don't care." So he keeps running around and he gets a splinter. He says, "You're gonna get infected." "I don't care." Gets around, gets the splinter. Huh? No. So the kid runs around, he gets a splinter, he gets an infection, you take him to the hospital, the doctor comes, his whole inflamed, doctor comes with his big knife and he starts prodding and the kid's screaming and he clean out the whole infection, they bandage it up. Within 2 weeks, he's as good as new. 3 months later, what's happening? He's running around without his socks and shoes on. "Hey, you're going to get a splinter." "I don't care." "You're going to get infected." "I don't care." "We're going to have to take you to the doctor, and he's going to come with that big knife." Oh my goodness, the kid goes, runs, and he puts on his socks and shoes. Huh? No, he's scared of the doctor with the knife, but he's not scared of the infection. He's not scared of the splinter. We are scared of the healing process. We're scared of the remedy, but we're not scared of the illness. It's a little bit immature. So when we view reward and punishment in Judaism, it's not that the kid is going to get rewarded with a healthy foot for putting his shoes on. And it's not like he's going to be punished with the doctor with the scalpel for getting a splinter. The doctor with the scalpel is painful, but it's healing. That is his medicine. You have to do it. His mother is taking him there. You're going to take your kid to, God forbid, if it happens, you take a kid to the Royal Free with his big thing in his foot. And the doctor's going to come and prod and the kid's going to yell and shout. That is what we're talking about in reward and punishment. Look at text number 4. Okay? The fires of Gehenna, hell, are stoked in direct proportion to the degree of the wicked fan their fiery passions. Accordingly, we must say that Gan Eden paradise is amplified by the tremendous passion we exist. Not text number 4. I'll read it. Take great. You get reward and punishment according to your experiences. Wasn't one I wanted to read. They take great pleasure and delight for God Himself. This is the general reward and punishment that works. But let's look at text number 6. Sorry, text number 6. The purpose of Gehenna, page 139. The purpose of Gehenna is to refine the soul and rid it from any sickness that it contracted. This is similar to the process of smelting silver, wherein the dross and sediment is burned away in a furnace, leaving the silver clean and free of impurities. Similarly, for the soul to be able to experience the light of the supernal pleasures and bask in God's radiance, it must be refined in the spiritual fire of Gehenna, whereby the negative is purged from the positive. I'll get to that in a second. What it is, we'll get to in a second. In fact, there's a story. The Talmud tells a very interesting story. There was someone called Acher. Okay, his original name was Elisha ben Avuya. Elisha ben Avuya was in the times of the Talmud, was one of the leading scholars, and he was a contemporary of Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Meir, who was one of the leading authorities in the Mishnah. Rabbi Meir, almost every statement of the Mishnah, which is not part of a debate, is Rabbi Meir's statement. So Rabbi Meir is the man who most of our religion goes according to his interpretations. Rabbi Meir was his student, Elisha ben Avuya. Elisha ben Avuya went into a drastic change. He became a heretic, sided with the Romans, helped them conspire to outsmart Jewish people, people died because of him. He became a moral degenerate, a traitor, and he aided and abetted the Romans in killing Jews. And he helped them outsmart all the things that Jews did to survive. He helped the Romans because of his vast knowledge of Torah. He was one of the leaders of the Jewish community. He gave them all the inside knowledge they needed to stay a step ahead of the Jews. And he used to ride on Yom Kippur to antagonize the Jewish people. The Talmud says the following story. Elisha ben Avuya was a former Mishnaic sage who turned to such public heresy and treachery that he was given the nickname Acher. Acher means something else. And that's what they called him. They didn't even call him his name anymore. They just called him Acher, something else. And the Talmud says, when Acher died, the heavenly court declared, we will not afflict him with judgment in Gehenna, nor will we permit him to enter paradise. The reasoning, we will not afflict him with judgment because he studied much Torah. We will not permit him to enter paradise because he sinned terribly. Acher's former principal, Rabbi Meir, says, better indeed that he judged and punished, that he may enter paradise. Rabbi Meir was his student. Rabbi Meir prayed that his teacher should go to hell out of love, because it says, better let him go into Gehenna so that he may be cleansed of what he's done, so that later he enter paradise. At the end of the day, this man did a lot for me, and I pray that he should go to hell, not out of vengeance, but out of love. Because in order for him to go through that period, back into Gan Eden, he had to go through this cleansing process. Now, one of the ways I'm just thinking. Okay, so let's look at text number 7. What is this? What is this healing? What is this punishment? Okay. Then an individual will also see himself in a new light. So what happens when we pass away? Instead of calling it hell, which is a Christian concept, which is that you're punished for the sake of being punished, and you're condemned forever. That's what hell is. If you don't buy into it, you're going to go to hell, and you'll be condemned forever to punishment. Judaism doesn't believe in retributive punishment, meaning revenge. Paying revenge just for the sake of paying revenge. Doesn't exist in Judaism. Every experience in Judaism, spiritual, physical, is for a greater purpose and to get you to a better space. Sometimes someone had to be killed for that. In order to, so you killed someone, the only rectification for your neshama is capital punishment. Now, before I actually go on to this, which gets into the detail of it, I want to just say one thing, that in 1969, the week of the moon landing, I'm talking about reward and punishment itself before we get into the process of it. The week of the moon landing, there was have I said this before, by the way? No, just some teaching, so we need classes back and forth. So the week of the moon landing, there was a talk show in an American radio And Rabbi Zalman Posner from Tennessee, Chabad rabbi, was on the radio in New York. And it was a call-in show, and someone asked, I cannot believe how barbaric the Torah is, that it says that if you light a fire on the Sabbath, you get killed. And really, if I just light a cigarette, I'm going to get killed just for smoking a cigarette? So the rabbi explained that in actual fact, these things never happened, which is true. The Beth Din had to go through so many rigorous stages before meting out capital punishment. It rendered it practically impossible for them ever to do it. You had to be warned by 2 witnesses. You had to repeat the warning word for word. You had to be proven to be a calm and sane mental health at the time. You had to repeat the warning. They had to witness you, and people had to witness them giving you the warning, and then they had to witness you and doing it and you repeating it. It was such a whole complicated thing till they got someone who said if a Beth Din killed someone more than once in 70 years, that Beth Din was considered a murderous, reckless Beth Din. That was the answer. Now the Rebbe, on that Shabbat, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, spoke. He said, I heard. I was listening. And he says, what he said was true, but he didn't answer the question. The question was, why does the Torah write something like that? And you tell me that, well, it never got carried out. So why write it? And he says, the sad thing is that we had a great opportunity to answer the question from the news this week. That you had Neil Armstrong stepping onto the lunar, stepping out the lunar module onto the moon. And 1 billion people were watching live. Millions and millions and millions of dollars were invested in this. Pretty much anyone on planet Earth who could was watching in anticipation of him fulfilling this mission that he was about to do. Now imagine during that tense time when the lunar module was orbiting the moon and they couldn't find the place and they weren't sure, and he was stressed and he wanted to light a cigarette. He just wanted to smoke a cigarette. What would have happened? The whole thing would have blown up. And the whole mission would have been aborted. What's wrong? He just wanted to light a cigarette. So an average person on the street lights a cigarette, it's of no significance. But when you're Neil Armstrong, and there's 1 billion people watching you, every bit of your existence is impactful, and it's full of meaning, and it's full of consequence. And what the Torah is communicating with this idea is that you are like Neil Armstrong. You're on this planet, and up there in heaven, there are people rooting for you and hoping that you're going to succeed in the mission that you have on planet Earth that cannot be achieved in heaven. You're a soul that's not in heaven. You're a soul that's come into a body for a specific mission. And that mission is extremely, extremely significant. And there's all applauding you up there and all rooting for you. So the Torah is giving you a communication in this idea. The Torah is communicating a truth. The truth is that you are a person of significance and your actions have value and consequence. And are people rooting for you? That's what the Torah communicates as a truth. Then it has a layer of practicality and pragmatism, which is the way the Beth Din is structured. You can't go killing everybody who lights a cigarette. So you have all these structures to safeguard. Yes, this is the truth. Yes, this is the ideal. But then we've got to deal with the pragmatics of real life. So when we talk about reward and punishment in Torah, the main essence of this idea of reward and punishment is that your actions have significance. And you come into this world on a mission, and then you go back. Now, allow me to explain with one more analogy. You have a king has 3 sons, and he sends these 3 sons he sends these 3 sons on a mission. So I want you to go to the Amazon rainforest. It's part of our empire. And in there, or some jungle somewhere, there are groups of people where civilization hasn't reached. They're eating off the floor. There's nothing. They don't even know how to cook. They don't know how to read, right? I want you to bring civilization to that part of the empire. He takes 3 princes who have grown up in the palace in luxury and comfort, well educated, well trained, sends them out on this mission. Prince number 1 goes to the jungle. You see, oh my God, this guy's coming out there, paint over thing. This guy's got a bone through his nose. He's got horns coming out everywhere, and they're eating on the floor. It's disgusting. Ugh, I'm a prince. I can't end up like these guys. So he builds himself a little shed, and he spends all day chanting the national anthem, repeating Shakespeare, and making sure that he takes care of himself and preserves the fact that he's a prince as much as he can. The second son comes in. He's like, wow, these people are so far apart from me. I've got to help these people. I've got to engage with these people. Before long, he's just become one of them. He's got involved. He gets them. He understands them. And the third son goes there and he starts working with them, and he starts building, and he starts developing the place. 3 children come back. None of them are allowed in the palace. Why? First of all, they haven't showered in 10 years. Okay. The first one, the guards recognize him. Okay, you're not bad. You've got to go for some rehab. You've lost a tooth. You've got to get some new clothes. You've got to get a haircut. Then you'll be able to come in. Okay. He still speaks. Second one, he doesn't have a single tooth. He's coming back with a bone through his nose. He's wearing the leaves. They have no idea. What are you doing at the palace? The guards say, hey, go. Pull him to the mental home. And he said, wait. He starts talking. They recognize the voice. He doesn't even remember how to speak the language. He starts making all these weird animal sounds that he learned in the jungle. But with a DNA test, they realize he's the prince. They're like, right, you've got to go for 12 months. You've got to go to this rehab center. We're going to put you a full set of implants. You're going to relearn how to speak the language. You're going to get surgery done. It's going to be painful, but you'll come back. But you got to fix up. Then son number 3 comes back. He's coming back with a whole army of people. Stink. He's also got half his teeth. His clothes are tattered. Doesn't look anything like the first prince. He also has got to go for rehab. Not for 6 months, not for 9 months. Then they come back into the palace after all of them are in the palace. Son number 1, father's so happy with him. I have to see you, I recognize you, still got your full set of teeth. You still didn't forget who you are. Wonderful. What happened on your mission? Where's the people? Look, Dad, I'm not getting involved there. They're crazy. He says, well, you could have stayed here in the palace. What did I send you there for 10 years for? Second son, even worse. You went, you forgot who you are. You had to go through this 9 months. Then the third son. Third son came back. It took him 6 months of painful therapy to get back in. But he fulfilled the mission. He brought the empire to this new place. It came at a cost. Of course it came at a cost. It was part of the plan. The same way as us. We are divine beings. We lived in heaven. God sent us down to this world, to a place where there's no godliness, where there's no spirituality, bereft of goodness, where there's strife. And he's saying, I want you to bring a bit of heaven into earth. We come here, we have 3 options. We can stay in shul all day and say, oh my God, the world outside is so terrible. I'm going to block myself off from the earth, from the world. I'm not going to continue. And we go back up. We get that back into the palace. Still, we're dirty from this world. Every soul comes back from this world. A part of your experience is stuck, like going back from the jungle. But that's one person. His life is quite congruent with the other reality because he didn't really leave heaven. But he hasn't accomplished much while he was in this world. The second son completely assimilated, forgot everything who he was. He's the guy from the jungle, completely became part and parcel of this world, completely forgot about anything of spiritual value, invested all of his time and resources in gathering materialistic things that he couldn't even take with him. It's like the son who comes back to heaven, no teeth, completely forgot the language, completely forgot everything. Got a lot of rehab to go, maximum 12 months. Then there's the third son, which most of us fall into this category. Hopefully. We come back. We've left our mark on this world. We've brought a bit of godliness into this world. But we got tainted by the world. Naturally. We got dirty. So we have to go for rehab in order to get back into the palace. We've got to get a few teeth put back in. We've got to relearn some of the language. But what we bring back with us is something that no one else in heaven has. What we bring back with us, unless they've been down here. No angels have it, and without us, even God wouldn't have it. And that is a bit of the holiness that has come from the dark world. A group of people from the jungle who have now become civilized. So when we go through this cleansing process, don't look at it as retribution and punishment, but consequences for our actions in this world. Some of them are even laudable. Some of those actions that give us Gehenna are actually what we came here for. And in the process, we get connected with this world. We get a bit of the grime in this world. We lose a tooth or two. We forget. But we've accomplished something. We've made a mark. We've brought godliness down into this world. Now, to get back into the palace, we need that kind of rehab. Now, what is that? Text number 7 is from Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan. And he explains. So then an individual, so it's not like heaven is up there and hell is down here. Remember, I think 2 weeks ago we said the person, everyone who passes away is just one floor higher. They're always with us. They don't go far away, we go to a different dimension. But from that dimension, we see the truth. And some of that is therapeutically painful. Then an individual will also see himself in a new light. Even in our mortal physical state, looking at oneself can sometimes be pleasing and other times be painful. Imagine standing naked before God with your memory wide open, completely transparent, without any jamming mechanism or reducing valve to diminish the force. You see everything in front of you. You remember everything you ever did. You will see it in the light of the unabashed spirit, or if you will, in God's own light that shines from one end of creation to the other. So everything you've done, said, or acted is seen by yourself and by God, not by public. Big misconception. I've heard people say that after we die, all our friends are shown a video of all the horrible things we did. There is no redeeming factor in that happening, and that doesn't happen. The way there is a redeeming factor is us seeing a video of our actions, not other people. Us and God, our Creator. If anything, the only salvaging thing here is that our Creator sees it, not only ourselves. The memory of every good deed and mitzvah will be sublimest of pleasures. But your memory will also be open to things which you are ashamed. They cannot be rationalized away or dismissed. You will be facing yourself, fully aware of the consequences of your deed. We all know the terrible shame and humiliation experienced when one was caught in the act of doing something wrong. Imagine being caught one's own memory with no place to escape. A number of great teachers, Yosef Albo, Nasha ben Israel, write that the fire of Gehenna is the burning shame one experiences because of one's sins. Of course, these concepts, as used by our sages, may also contain deeper mysteries and meanings. But a major ingredient of this fire may be shame. How else could one characterize the agony of an unconcealed shame upon a soul? We are taught that the judgment of the wicked lasts 12 months. The pain eventually subsides. Now, it's not that heaven is up there, hell is down there. It's the same place. It's the place where everything is revealed, where everything is open and clear. Now, for some people, that is heaven because their life was lived congruent to that. And other people, Take time to get used to that reality. And that's hell. But it's not, it's uncomfortable. It's not punishment. It's not damnation. It's not, I'm going to get you. It's the reality that we create for ourselves. Sometimes that reality is a price that our neshama is happy, not happy, but is ready to pay, because that comes as part of the consequences of being in this world. As long as we minimize it and we don't forget who we are and what we're here for. Yes, 100%. Yes, yes, we start afresh. But we still have Yom Kippur next year. What's the point of that? Right? I explained this on Yom Kippur, actually. We explained this 2 weeks ago here as well. So imagine, it's like I said before, it's a cleansing process. Like your friend holding up a mirror. It hurts, but it's important. The idea of Yom Kippur, the goal of Yom Kippur, we start with Kol Nidre. Kol Nidre is getting rid of all the vows that we make to ourselves throughout the year. Vows of resentment, vows of guilt, vows, I don't like this person, I don't like that person, I have this baggage, I have that baggage, I limit myself, I label myself, I'm not this, I'm not that, I am religious, I'm not religious, I am good, I'm not good, all of this limiting thoughts. The goal of Yom Kippur is to ascend to our deepest core. The part of our neshama, we spoke about nefesh, ruach, neshama, the highest part is called Yehuda. It's the part of our soul that's at one with God. It's still up there. And there's only one time a year we reach that, and that's at the fifth prayer of Yom Kippur Ne'ilah. We start on earth at Kol Nidre, by shedding all the guilt that we have, all the vows that we made to ourselves, all the self-limiting thoughts. And then throughout the year, throughout our experiences, like a builder going to work and getting plaster stuck on himself, our neshama gets caked over. And with every al-khait, we knock off another layer of that grime. By the end of Yom Kippur, we're pure. But we go step back into the world the next day. And naturally, we get dirty again. So Yom Kippur does cleanse us. And Teshuvah does cleanse us. And if a person does Teshuvah in this world, it cleanses us from the experiences of that world. The analogy of the Amazon jungle is not 100%, because here we have the mechanisms to grow new teeth, unlike the prince. Yes? Yeah. Of course. Doing one by accident is not even is an accident. Doing one on purpose is a result of you coming into this world. No, yes, but then that intention becomes part of your neshama, which is not good. And ultimately you'll always be cleansed. But going intentionally and saying I'll pay for it later, when it's not for a greater purpose, is just going to add to the stickiness of that grime. That's the stronger glue than anything else. When you intentionally do. Oh, as opposed to doing it by mistake when you don't even know you're doing it? I don't understand what you mean. See, the problem is that sometimes in order to descend into this world, we have to make mistakes. Okay? Like the guy in the jungle. But the problem is I hope you'll get this. Let me see if I can explain this well. We say that if you say, I will sin and then I will do teshuvah, it doesn't work. Which ultimately everything does work. But why doesn't it work? Because if you're doing it, because I'm just doing it, okay? Then what happened is you descended into this world. You became part of this world and you did what you did. But when you say, I'm doing it and I know I'm going to fix it later, you didn't really descend into this world. You actually haven't, you still remain. That thought actually is lifting you to heaven for a minute while you're sinning. So you actually don't bring heaven down to earth. You've actually lifted yourself up. You could say, look, in my work, I brought some heaven down to earth, and in my work, I got lost in doing it. But at least you're bringing heaven down to earth. By saying, I'm going to do teshuvah later. What you're doing here is you're actually keeping heaven up there, and you're still connected back to the palace. You don't even have the pleasure of at the time. Okay, we learn in Tanya by the way, Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m., Thursday afternoon, 2 p.m. we have a class in Tanya where we talk about this. We learn in Tanya that when we interact with the world, we lift everything. Everything we have, every pleasure we have, everything that's kosher can be lifted to holiness. Because it's mutter, means it's untied, it can be lifted to holiness. Anything that's forbidden is tied down into this world, and our connection with it cannot lift it. However, through teshuvah, we can lift it. Because we descended, we made a mistake, and actually, by sinning inadvertently, or by sinning, not by saying I'm going to do teshuvah, by sinning and then doing teshuvah, we end up lifting that thing. But if we say, I will sin now and I will do teshuvah, you haven't descended to that item. I don't want to get it, it's quite deep and esoteric, but the mechanism gets messed up when you do things that way. Yeah.
But you don't keep focusing.
Yeah.
Does that mean that you're going to have to pay for this? I mean, the cleansing or the end of this, but you are actually a very good person.
Every expert.
Which comes to the thing of being Jewish and non-Jewish as well. I know this is another.
Okay, so every person has a different mission in this world. A Jewish person has a Jewish mission, and they're fulfilling this mission is through the Torah and mitzvah, and keeping kosher and those things. A non-Jewish person has a different mission, and their mission is not fulfilled through keeping Torah and doing mitzvah. Now, there are two paths in your mission. One is interpersonal relationships, and one is spiritual relationships. When you keep kosher, when you eat something, let's put it that way. When you eat something, you connect with that item that you're eating. Now, if you are spiritually connected, you elevate that item to godliness. Meaning you make a blessing on it, you use your energy that you got from that food, or the pleasure that you got from just having, not because you need to eat, but because you're just enjoying it. And that pleasure gives you endorphins that enable you to fulfill the rest of the purpose of your life, and your life is directed to something higher. All of those things you've interacted with come up and are elevated. And when you pass away, you bring all of those elements, each of which has a spark of godliness in it, keeping it in existence. You've elevated it back to godliness, which cannot be done by any angel. Only a human being can take a piece of steak, can take a car, can take something physical and elevate it to something spiritual. Provided that item is what's called mutar, which means permitted, or open, untied. It can be tied up. It can be elevated. If it's asur, which means it's forbidden, or also the word asur means tied down to this world, part of your neshama connects down with that thing and cannot be lifted unless one does teshuvah. Teshuvah elevates it higher. A person who does teshuvah reaches the heights that even the holiest of tzaddikim cannot reach. A person who, why? Because when we sin, provided that we didn't sin with the intention of doing teshuvah. When we sinned because we were just sinning, and then what happens is we connect with that unelevatable item. And then by going through the process of teshuvah, we elevate every single sin that we have done becomes like a mitzvah. When we turn the clock back and elevate those items that a tzaddik couldn't. A tzaddik, number one, would never eat non-kosher food because he's a tzaddik. Number two, if he did, and he would say, I will do it, and then I will do teshuvah, he couldn't really elevate it because he would still remain connected above because he's thinking about teshuvah. It's only those people who sin for sinning for the purpose of sins and then do teshuvah. Not when they sinned, they did not know the knowledge of teshuvah. They sinned because they sinned. And then they repented. They elevate those items, that non-kosher food, to holiness. And that becomes part of their spiritual being, where a tzaddik, a holy, religious person, will never be able to reach.
What do you do with those items?
You don't do them. They're elevated. They become part of you. They become part of holiness. They're a gift to well, after we pass away, we see how valuable it is, and we see how we've enhanced our neshama. The world above has become enhanced by our actions and our interactions into this world. One of the things that I explained, I want to get into heaven in a minute, okay? One of the things I explained, someone asked me yesterday. Next week we talk about incarnations of souls. And someone came to me afterwards and says, I was born Catholic and I converted. Halachically converted. What does that say about my soul? So I explained to her something which also applies to everybody. I said, we look at life and existence like soldiers going out to the army. We're soldiers sent from heaven into this world to accomplish a mission to transform this world. In an army, anyone know what the word jobnik is? What's a jobnik? In Hebrew they have it. It's called a jobnik. It comes from the word job. You're a weak soldier. You don't have stamina. You don't know how to fight, but you're in the army. What they do, they give you a job. In the kitchen, at base, they keep you close. The strongest soldiers, the toughest soldiers, the best soldiers are sent to battle. The real best soldiers are sent behind enemy lines. Sometimes an neshama has to go behind enemy lines and sin and lift things up. Sometimes an neshama has to go somewhere so distant that they are born into a non-Jewish body. A Jewish neshama going to a non-Jewish body. A convert who converts is called a convert who converts, not a non-Jew who converts. They were always considered a convert because their soul was a Jewish soul that was born into a non-Jewish body. So I said to her, I said, weaker neshamas are kept close, like me, in a shul. And we're here the whole time. My neshama wasn't trusted with major tests because it's not that strong. A neshama that's stronger, a soul that's stronger, is given bigger tests, like a soldier is given bigger tests. I don't have the tests of not eating kosher because it doesn't enchant me. And if I wouldn't be able to succumb. I would succumb. I wouldn't have the strength and the stamina. If my neshama was sent to a non-Jewish body, I would never convert because my neshama doesn't have the stamina. Like a soldier who's weak is sent behind enemy lines, he'd succumb. A strong soldier has the strength to actually do teshuvah, to actually win the war. And a person who's sent with bigger tests in this world, whether they are born as and have to convert, or whether they are born in circumstances that give them bigger tests, it's only because they're of a higher quality and a stronger stamina and stronger stature that they're able to elevate those things.
Then you basically say that anyone who has more difficult challenges in life have more capable of shaman.
Yes, 100%. The Talmud says God doesn't give us a test that we cannot accomplish. There was I think I said this last week at the Tanya Share, actually. I opened up the Tanya Share with a story of the boy who was going out with a non-Jewish girl. And he told his rabbi, I believe in, I love shul, but it doesn't agree with my new life, and I'm never coming back. And I've heard all the speeches about guilt and Holocaust and breaking the chain. It doesn't work for me. This is who I am. So the rabbi, this is Rabbi Slavatitsky from Belgium, he says, come with me maybe we'll see the Lubavitcher Rebbe. They go, while the Rebbe was alive, and they go by, and the Rebbe was giving out dollars. They're meeting people in the line, and he blurts out to the Rebbe, Rebbe, I am about to marry my non-Jewish girlfriend. He's expecting, how dare you, Holocaust, all the guilt speeches. The Rebbe said, I'm jealous of you. I envy you. He says, oh, what? He says, yes, because we're each given tests that we have strength to overcome. And this woman means a lot to you. And it's going to take a lot for you to find within yourself not to marry her because she's not for you in the shaman, because you're not Jewish. She's not Jewish, and you are. And I wasn't given that test. I wasn't given that opportunity to do something for God that you have the ability to do. I wasn't given that opportunity to make such a strong, painful sacrifice. For Hashem, I was never given that opportunity to give God something so strong. and you were. The reason is because I don't have the stamina. This is someone like the Rabbi was saying, and you do. So when one's given a test, it's because one has that stronger strength. I think it's 11:30. We've covered a lot. We haven't covered heaven yet, but I can finish off here, and we could, yeah.
We've spoken about mission, having a mission many times. So once you accomplish or you complete your mission or whatever, you die.
As long as there is one strong mission that we have, and there's always another purpose that we have. One of the reasons why Judaism is at preserving life at all costs. BBC, Louis Theroux has a series of documentaries on weirdos, like people who talk to UFOs and stuff like that. Along with that, he had a series on the weirdos in America who preserve life at all costs, as if that's weird. Judaism believes in preserving life at all costs. When someone's ill, we do everything we can to keep them alive on machines, etc. Yeah, just 1 second. The reason is because as long as a soul is in the body, there is a purpose for them to fulfill in this world. If there wasn't, they wouldn't be alive. And sometimes the purpose we fulfill is just by existing. Every human being that's alive emanates a godly spiritual life. I will show you a video about that afterwards. Yes?
Does that mean that definitely that's what we would while we were You're talking from a Jewish point of view, because we're Jewish.
Yes.
But we're all human beings, so if you're Catholic or...
Well, Judaism believes that every person is born with a specific mission, and if your mission is fulfilled through Judaism, you would be born a Jew. If you're not born a Jew, unless you're destined to convert, which is to begin with, then your mission is as to fulfill your life as whichever way you were born in, unless it's serving idols or something like that.
But you don't choose.
No.
If in this life we're Jewish, does that mean we come back, we're always Jewish?
The essence of your neshama is a Jewish neshama, and you're always Jewish.
You're always.
Yes. You're talking about reincarnation?
Yes.
We'll talk about reincarnation next week. We'll talk.
Like the Jewish soul, the one that you saw that went through why did that happen in the
Because there's something that soul could only accomplish by being raised in a non-Jewish home. And then coming back.
Sometimes it's harder to do though, and it's easier to assimilate.
Sometimes? I didn't say it's easy. Trust me, it's hard. I'm suffering here. I don't know how we're going to pay the bills.
But to physically do it is harder. It's harder. It's easier to assimilate and just think, oh, I'll buy my meat from Tesco and not have to go to.
Yeah, it's hard to follow rules in an army base too. But the point is that for a person who's born in a completely non-Jewish religious environment, for them to keep kosher is a lot harder for you to keep kosher in a Jewish environment. That's the point I'm trying to say. You live in Hampstead Garden suburb, okay? It's a lot easier to keep kosher growing up in Hampstead Garden suburb than it is in a circumstances where everything is tough. And it's a lot easier to keep kosher when you're growing up in Stamford Hill or B'nai Brak than when it's with you, where in Stamford Hill, the only non-kosher meat you can get tastes disgusting.
It's easier physically not to be Jewish, but it's harder, very hard, to ignore that intrinsic, that feeling that you have all the time that you're a Jew. That's what's hard.
Every Jew has this intrinsic feeling.
That feeling of I'm actually Jewish, I'm ignoring it, I'm not doing what I should be doing.
Well, that's not getting the guilt thing here. Guilt is not a Jewish feeling.
Like
Guilt. Jews have guilt, like Jews have IBS. Yes.
That's right. You're ignoring.
But it's not part of Jewish religion to have guilt. No. Yeah, okay, so you know something? This is something that you'll see Jews across the spectrum having. I've said this before. You have non-Jew, you have Jews who have lapsed from their religion and given up their life. Given up their life when said, convert or die, they'll say, I'd rather die. Well, what do you mean? You just lived without anything. Daniel Pearl, who was the Wall Street journalist, who was killed beheaded. The first terrorist beheading was Daniel Pearl from the Wall Street Journal. Remember him?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, before he died, he said, I am Jewish, my mother's Jewish, my father's Jewish, there's a plaque about my family, I am a Jew. And he wanted to die that way. I met the woman whose house he stayed in. She's not Jewish. She was friends with his girlfriend who wasn't Jewish. He lived in Pakistan. He was completely disconnected. But when it came to the truth, the only thing that mattered to Daniel Pearl was to die as a Jew, because that is who we essentially are. Yeah. No, actually, he told them that he was Jewish. They killed him because he's a Western journalist. No, and he told them I'm a Jew, and he wanted to die as a Jew. There are many people who Jews are never indifferent about being Jewish, no matter how secular they are. You go into and that's why it irks something within. It's the one thing that everyone needs expression for. And unfortunately, in many cases, that isn't allowed to be given expression because the Judaism they experienced was unfulfilling, was meaningless, was by rote, was technical, was fearful. So it wasn't real. So they say, I'm not having any of this. So they check out, but they don't check out. So they're always looking for something. And the one thing, sadly, that people stick to is anti-Semitism. Oh, I can defend it. I can fight it. Or social justice. There's always Jews. They're never happy with accepting the status quo of the way the world is. You'll see it in almost every movement. You go to a synagogue in Yom Kippur and you go to a church, and I've said this before, you go to a church on Christmas or on a Sunday, ask a person, do you believe in God? They're looking crazy. Coming out of church, of course I believe in God. Muslims, the same thing. Go to a Yom Kippur, go to a synagogue and ask a Jew, do you believe in God? No one's going to give you a straight answer. So why are you here? They look at you as if you're crazy. What do you mean, why am I here? I'm Jewish and it's Yom Kippur. That's not normal. The same thing at a Seder is coming up. You ask an average Jew at the Seder, do you believe in the story of the Exodus? I'm not a historian. I don't know. But said, they did find archaeologists and stuff. So why are you at the Seder? Well, I'm Jewish. It's Pesach. That doesn't exist in any other religion. Because the Jewish neshama is a deepest core of really who you are. That's what defines you, no matter how you act on the outside.
So much after you. It's a way of life. I don't know.
That's for you, because you've grown up in a very traditional home. But for many Jews, they haven't grown up that way. I will do this week's meditation. We'll finish that. Just 1 second. I'll just go through this. So the soul experiences the negative effects of its action. This painful process cleanses the soul. The soul is now able to enter paradise. We also have a maximum sentence of 12 months. This is the idea that it says, I won't do this. I just want to cover a few things. Text 8 says the maximum is 12 months, but ultimately every single Jew has a portion of the world to come. Everyone ends up in Gan Eden. Your people are righteous and they all inherit the land. Forever they are my branch, my planting, my work, which I take proud. God loves each person. Now, I'll just give you a quick thing on heaven, okay? Very quick on heaven as follows. Text number 10 is paradise. What is heaven? Sincere tshuva in this world cleans any offense. A sincere tshuva in this world cleans any offenses. A person who passes away probably on Yom Kippur night goes straight to heaven. And a lot of the suffering we go through in this world also cleanses our neshama from these experiences. So people who suffer in this world also go right in. Now, when we do a mitzvah, the purpose of doing a mitzvah is to forge an intimate bond with God. A holy mitzvah, a Jewish mitzvah. It's not that one mitzvah leads to another. When you do a mitzvah, at that moment, you are forging an intimate bond with God. He is expressing to you his deepest desires, and you are fulfilling them. I really like it when you light candles at 4 p.m. for some reason. And you're lighting candles. At that moment, no matter what you did before, no matter what's happening after, at that moment, you are having, as long as you're lighting it on time, obviously, not on Shabbat, you are forging a deepest, intimate bond with God. Your neshama, at the moment you do a mitzvah, is tied up and at one with God. There was a Jew who could not shut his shop on Shabbat. And he was close with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and his Rebbe said to him, what time do you go to work on Shabbat? He says, about 9 o'clock. He says, can you leave at 9:05 or 9:10? He says, yes. On Shabbat, yes. So on Shabbat morning, between 9 and 9:10, the only reason why you're not going to work is because it's Shabbat. And God, your creator, who's connected, wants you not to work on Shabbat. Those 10 minutes, you are forging a deep, infinite and intimate, everlasting bond with God. And that becomes part of who you are. Now, that relationship is created, but when we go into paradise, we experience that oneness. The most pleasurable thing for a human being is connection, intimacy, relationships. And the deeper the relationship, the holier it is. The idea of intimacy in Judaism is a holy act. It's considered holy. Why is it considered holy? In other religions, it's considered a necessary evil, so to speak. It's not just considered holy because we create babies that way, and nor does create babies that way. In fact, the opposite. Life is created that way because the pleasure of intimacy, the oneness, is so holy. That's why life comes from that. Why is it so pleasurable? And why is it so holy? Because that pleasure is a scintilla of the oneness and the pleasure and the intimacy that exists in Gan Eden. In heaven, it's all complete oneness. Where our neshama comes from, it's oneness. Life comes from is this oneness. And Gan Eden, heaven, is oneness with nothing interfering. Absolute, complete oneness. The more mitzvahs we do in this world, the stronger, the more intimate that bond is later, and the more pleasurable it is. When we're in this world, going back to the intimacy idea, there's a difference between sex and intimacy. Sex is about yourself. Intimacy is about the other person. Real intimacy is when there is nothing in between. Whether that myth of the sheet is actually against halacha, it comes from tzitzis, right? Hanging tzitzis on the line. Now, famous myth. But why is it against halacha? Because there is nothing. In intimacy, there's supposed to be nothing between man and woman. It's just one complete, powerful bond. And in that power, you are connecting with the deepest godly power in the world. And that's that oneness. It's so powerful that life comes from it. It's a bit like nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is so powerful, it can save the planet because of energy, clean energy. It can also destroy the planet. Same thing is with the idea of sexual energy. It can create life, does create life, and it can destroy life. And therefore, just like the more voltage going through wires, the more protection it needs. I remember when we dug up the pavement to put the electricity here, the pipe was this big. The amount of protection these guys were wearing when they were hooking up this building, a lot more than a little switch. The same thing here. So with every mitzvah we do, creates that oneness, and that's what we experience later. Now, when we're in this life, we're creating mitzvah, we're adding oneness to our neshamas. When we pass away, we can no longer add to that account. But people who we leave behind can do so on our behalf. In paradise, the soul is constant state of progress. That relationship grows. On the yard site, it takes a quantum leap. It grows even stronger. But all of that journey is programmed and created through every mitzvah that we do in this world. Once we pass away, we can no longer do mitzvot, but other people can do it. So progeny, people we leave behind, anything that we do elevates our parents' souls, any mitzvah we do. So any mitzvah we do creates stronger intimacy between our loved ones and God, creates stronger pleasure, because those connections of intimacy cannot be created in heaven. They can only be created through our work in this world. And when we do something, our parents benefit from it. People and family. But no, this generally is fat parents, because your parents brought you into this world. So because of them, you came here. As your actions are a result of them. Others require meditative action. So many times people will dedicate a building, a room, sponsor something, a shir, a class in honor of someone, so that all the other people learning are learning on behalf of the deceased. Also, people who we influence in life, people whose lives we changed, and as a result of our actions, they do good, also adds to our things. Now, auspicious times to do this is the first 12 months after passing, because while the transition is going on, every single action done by the children, every act of learning, every act of tzedakah, every act of anything has massive, massive impact, especially on the yard site. Also, Yom Kippur, Shmini Atzeret, when we do Yizkar, these are auspicious times. The words in Kaddish doesn't mention, we'll just go through this quickly. Kaddish is the mourner's prayer. Does anyone know what the meaning of Kaddish is? If you look at it, you'll see in the, what was that? You'll see that on page number, text 13, it says Kaddish. You will not see mourning, you will not see grief, nothing. It's all about making God's name great. Why? And that text 14 says, because every human being is the absence of every human being, every member of the community of Israel is in a sense those who establish and proclaim God's sovereignty in the world. Every person is a witness of God's sovereignty in this world. When someone dies, a void is created in this world of godliness. And therefore we fill that void by saying, Yiskadal, Yiskada, Shmei Rabba, exalted may be and hallowed be God's name. Why are we making God's name great? Because through the death of this person, God's name has been diminished in this world. With this perspective, we understand why citing Kaddish elevates the soul of the deceased. The aggregate of a person's actions and accomplishments in this world define his or her life. However, the tally of a person's achievements does not necessarily conclude at the moment of death. A complete evaluation of the person's accomplishments must also include all his accomplishments as a result of the person's inspiration and actions. Therefore, when those who remain alive, especially the person's children and descendants, whose very existence is a credit to their forebears, when they do deeds, they contribute to the deceased's balance of accomplishments. Although the deceased is no longer active in this world, his or her actions continue to inspire positive reactions. Now, the whole idea of paradise is not the goal. Imagine someone who's looking for the cure for cancer, and they are working in the lab to find the cure for cancer. They find a cure for cancer, and then they go home and they get the Nobel Prize. After they've come home with the Nobel Prize, feels good. They've probably got a pension for life now. They don't have to work. They have no longer any financial worries. And they've got this beautiful Nobel Prize on the shelf, and once in a while they're going to be asked to speak. But what would they give to be able to turn the clock back and go into that lab just for another few moments? When they were in the lab, were they working for the Nobel Prize? Were they doing it, or were they doing it to find the cure for cancer? The furthest thing from their mind was the Nobel Prize. When we're in this world, we're not doing it for Gan Eden. Gan Eden, paradise, is a result of what we're getting, like the Nobel Prize is a result of finding the cure for cancer. But while we're here, we're not thinking about there. We're not thinking about Gan Eden. We're not thinking about Gehenna. We're thinking about the purpose of why we're here. And every action that we have in this world, every interaction we have in this world is another chance to create another piece of holiness. And our mission is to be divine operatives in this world. Every interaction we do elevates that part. This is just the recap, and thank you very much.
Lesson 4.
We will talk next week about reincarnation.
Lesson 4. Where we go.
Yeah.
Do souls that have been departed interact with each other in the physical world, interact in the spiritual world? Like I say, your parents are united.
Well, your parents are reunited because they're one soul. And generally, souls interact because they're probably their effects in this world are interlinked. So their effects in the next world are interlinked. Hold on. When it comes, well, hold on. Not always. It depends. Sometimes divorce is a meaning that the person wasn't the original partner. Okay, and it wasn't the other half of the soul. Sometimes divorce is like an amputation.
What happens to the ambivalent body? Where is it? I mean, if you're saying if you're one soul, if your parents are one soul.
Not necessarily. If two souls, they get to their other half. After they pass away, we're united with our real other half, whoever that is. Up there, yeah. That's a question we'll deal with next week. But it also depends in many cases. There's zivug rishon, zivug sheni. It's called your first partner or your second partner. In many cases, it's the first partner who's the real partner. Yes, we'll talk more about that next week.
Lesson 4. Where we go. 1. God's rewards and punishments are natural consequences of our actions. 2. When we do mitzvot, we forge an intimate relationship with God. In the afterlife, our souls experience the effects of our actions, our relationship with God. This is the greatest possible pleasure, and is also known as paradise, Gan Eden. 3. At times, a soul cannot enter paradise immediately, for its inappropriate actions in this world diminished its capacity to experience spiritual pleasures. Gehinnom, a painful yet cleansing process, is temporary. Every soul ultimately reaches paradise. 4. In Gan Eden, the soul constantly ascends to higher levels. Good deeds performed in a person's memory, including the recital of Kaddish, elevate the soul to higher levels that it cannot attain on its own. 5. What we do here and now is more important than the pleasures or pain of the afterlife. Living in order to receive rewards in the next world, or to avoid heavenly punishment, distracts our focus from where it belongs, increasing goodness and godliness in this world.
Thank you very much. I actually decided that while this was going on, that the video I will show you about purpose is in next week's class, because ultimately the takeaway from reincarnation next week is how each one of us has a vital mission, and each one of us is interconnected in more ways than one. Again, if you would like to see more resources, write down this website address, and you'll see the videos from today's class, and you'll see the PowerPoint as well, and other things that we may not have accomplished, we may not have covered. Go there and you'll see, click on there's the hamburger, those 3 lines, and go, which is the menu, and click for lesson 4, and you will see what we had today. Thank you very, very much, everyone.